This video is to demonstrate how to create a locator map in a new data frame. First, we need to add a data frame to our table of contents. I'm going to insert a data frame, and then I'm going to rename it as Locator Map. The next step is to say OK, and then I'm going to right click and activate. Now that this data frame is activated and there's nothing in it, there's no map to display. If I were to reactivate the top primary map data frame, then the information shows. So I'm going to reactivate my locator map data frame. Now to add some data. Go to Add Data. This is not my data, of course. I'm going to go to my data folders, make sure I have the right drive. I'm going to add my Washington base map project shape. And now that I no longer need it in my primary map, I'm going to remove it. Zoom to the layer to make sure I have it nice and big. Came in as actually not a bad color, but I'm going to make sure I get a nice beige. There's a beige, and I'm going to remove the border. Say OK. Now it's a nice generic beige background map. Nothing fancy, just to use as the locator map. The next step is to tell this map to display a box where this map appears, which is right around this area. Right click my locator map data frame, click properties. From the list of other data frames, I only have one other. I click on the primary map and move it to show extend indicator for these data frames. I'm going to click on the frame and change this to, first, I like the red. First thing I'm going to do is change to a 0.5 line, and then for some peculiar reason I have to change it back. I'm going to go back to Mars Red and then click OK, and then apply. Lastly, OK. And for some reason the data frame indicator is not showing up, and that has been a problem with ArcMap 10 SP3. We're going to try to fix that. First thing I'm going to do is, I haven't saved my map in a while. I'm going to save it as Lab 7 Step 9.5 because I'm about halfway through Step 9. And save. I'm going to refresh to see if that'll bring the indicator back, and it does not. I think the issue may be that we're not in display mode. I'm going to click apply again, say OK, and if I go to layout view, there's the symbol. That's what we're looking for. For now, I'm going to go back from the layout to the data view and make some more changes. I have completed step 9. Even though I haven't done anything else, I'm going to save as, following the current directions, Lab 7 Map 2, and say save. No. So since I already have a map 2, I'll just change this to map 3 and click save. Our next process will be to create the layout. First step I've already mentioned, go to the layout view, which is this button way down here, or view layout view. In this case, now that I'm in layout view, both data frames can be seen. This is the view in which we'll add a scale bar, a legend, a north arrow, a neat line, and perhaps some other items. We will also adjust the placement very precisely so that the map looks exactly as we intend when we export it. Now that we're in layout view, there again are two maps on the page right on top of each other, which is okay for now. And we do have that extent rectangle and a 0.5 red. In the layout view, we also have access to a number of other tools that are not available in data view. These are located on the layout toolbar, and they include the zoom and pan tools that will zoom and pan the layout document without impacting the scale or extent of the maps, and a draft mode button to toggle between displaying your map graphics in the layout view or displaying placeholders for them. By toggling the draft mode button on, as you arrange your objects in your layout, ArcMap will not get bogged down attempting to redraw graphics after every change that is made. There is no need to use it at this point because we don't have that many layers, but beware of it and know that it's there in case you need it. And the toolbar to which I'm referring is right here. This is the toggle draft mode. These are the zoom in, zoom out, pan, zoom whole page, and these only affect the layout view. They don't affect the map itself. One of the easiest ways to move elements around the page is to click on this arrow and then click the data locator map, and you may move the map wherever you'd like. You may also grab a corner dongle and resize it. You may grab a side dongle, although the quarter dongles work the best. Just be aware of those options. Now I'm going to go back into the Locator Map Properties and click on the Size and Position tab. We'll set the size of the locator map frame in our layout and specifically position it on the page. Since this is a locator map, we're going to keep it very small and square-ish. We're going to set the size of the width, which is right here, to 2. And the height, we'll try 1.5. And if I click Apply, it resizes it. Notice the map itself doesn't change, just this small box. I'm now going to tell the anchor point of this locator map to be the top right option. And from here, I'm going to enter in some settings of where the X and the Y will be of this anchor point. In this case, I'm going to set the X to 8.1, and I'll set the Y to 10.8, and then click Apply. And the map immediately zips up to the top of the page because we're setting the X and Y coordinates of this point right here. And since this is in inches, 8.1 is right there. And if I move this down a little bit, 10.8 is right there, which is why it lines up exactly where it has. I'm going to click off the data frame after clicking Apply and OK. I click off of it and notice the box around it. I'm going to open up the properties again to remove that frame. Go to the Frame tab, go to Border, and I'm going to remove that black border from around the frame. Click Apply and OK. There is a dashed line, but that is only to reference that this is activated. If I were to activate the primary map, then the dotted line switches to the primary map. Switch the activate back to our map, the locator map that we're working with. I'm going to double check the scale of my primary map. To do this, so I must activate it, and it is still set at 1 to 150,000, and it is grayed out, which means I have set the fixed scale. That's good. I'm now going to set the positioning of the primary map by going to Properties and the Size and Position tab. I'm going to set the width at 7.7 inches and the height at 8.5 inches and apply. And notice that the map gets bigger, and it seems to get wider, but perhaps not as tall. We're going to fix that in a moment. To do so, we'll click the bottom left anchor point, which is already selected, and we're going to change that to 0.4 X and 0.4 for the Y. Apply, and it lines the map up. Right here is 0.4 and 0.4, which puts it right at the bottom edge of the map, which is exactly what we're trying to do. In this demo, I'm going to demonstrate some rounding. I'll go to the frame and set the rounding to 5%, which will give a slight round to the border. When I apply, okay, notice the frame is rounded a little bit. If you like that look, keep it. If you don't like it, feel free to change it. Just for this example, I think I'll keep it to demonstrate keeping everything rounded. While it may not look like it, both of my maps are very close to where I want them for the final display of the map, the final layout. It's now time to add a neat line to my map, which will surround all of the elements on the map. I'll go to Insert, Neat Line. I'm going to say place around all elements, from place around all elements to place inside margins. And then I'm going to set the gap to 3 points, which it is. And then rounding, since I used it previously, I'm going to set the rounding to 5%. Double check that this is a 1-point line. I don't want it to be super thick. Make sure it's a 1-point black border. And I'm not going to include any background or any drop shadow. Click OK, and a neat line is added to the map. At this point, it looks as though our locator map is too high, but we'll continue on and perhaps make a change to that a little bit later. Now it's time to add a title to the map, and there are a couple ways to do this. I'll show you one way, which is Insert Title, and then we add the title by just typing it in. And in this case, I'm going to write Farmers Markets and Park Locations in the Northwest Pierce County region. Double check for spelling and say OK. Notice that the title is too long. In this case, I'm going to place the cursor Properties, and retype the title. And this is why I never use this. I'm just showing you how this works. But I'm going to retype it here because this is one of the only ways that you could fix it. Farmers Markets and Park Locations. Later in this lab, I'm going to show you the way that I usually add my titles. And here, I'm going to place the cursor after the word locations and click enter, and then delete to get rid of that space. This divides the title into two lines. To highlight my text, click change symbol and change this to size 22 font. I'm going to add bold. In the size and the position tab, I'm going to click the top left anchor, which is right there, and set the X to 0.5 and the Y to 10.6. After I click OK, I may have to click this button, which is refresh. Because we may have set the draft toggle mode, there was some remnants of both items in there. Now it looks appropriate. We can definitely see that the locator map is too high. It's actually covering the neat line and doesn't line up with the title. It's easy to go in and change that. It looks as though the Y is too high at 10.8. Let's change that to 10.6 and apply and OK, and now it looks much more appropriate. We're still going to fix that area, but at least where it's lining up now, it looks more appropriate. It's now time to add a scale bar. If I were to add a scale bar with the locator map active, insert scale bar, and I'm just going to choose a very basic scale bar, perhaps this one, and say OK. Notice that this distance is 260 some odd miles. That is appropriate for this map, but not for this one, which means I obviously added the scale bar when the locator map was selected or activated. In this case, I just hit the delete key, activate my primary map, insert scale bar. I'm going to choose the same one and say OK. And now the scale bar is much more appropriate. 0 to 5 miles. That's perfect. It has a nice round number, easy to understand. That's the scale bar that I'm going to keep. And for now, I'm just going to leave it in this position. You may right-click it for properties. In this case, division units are set for miles. I'm going to change the label position below bar and see what that looks like. Click apply, and now I have miles beneath the bar, which may give me more room elsewhere. I'm going to keep it like that. Feel free to make yours any way you'd like. And say OK. I'm now going to place it just to the left of my locator map, like so. I think that looks pretty good there for now. I'm going to add a north arrow. I always use very simple north arrows. Cartographic best practices say pretty much eliminate Esri North 9 unless you want your map to be for children and comical. Avoid the very fancy schmancy ones. Technically, it should have an N and an arrow pointing north. I'm choosing north arrow 11. It ends up right here. In this case, I'm just going to put it right here to keep it out of the way. Doesn't distract from the map, and it works there for now. The next step is to add a legend to the map. We do so by heading to the Insert button and clicking the legend. I'm already activated on my primary map because I can see the lines. These options become available, and ArcMap knows to probably include all of these items. My job is to determine which of these elements belong in the legends and which do not. I'm going to choose farmers markets, parks, streets, and highways. Everybody will be able to tell that water bodies are the blue. I'm going to move water bodies to the left, and the same with regional topography. I now have farmers markets, streets and highways, and parks. It's easy to order these items. Click on the one you'd like to reorder, and I'm going to move it up one so that I have farmers markets, parks, streets, and highways in that order. There is a preview button if you'd like to preview what your legend is going to look like. Here's my preview. It comes up in a very awkward place, but I can see that it might be working out okay. I'm going to click the preview again to turn off the preview. One column is sufficient. We could add multiple columns here. I'm going to click Next to advance the legend title page. If you cannot see this, you may still be on Preview, which only allows Finish. If you turn off Preview, then you can click Next. There are two ways to not display the word legend. One is to delete this portion here, and I'm going to show you another method as well later as we click Next through the steps of the legend. Going to click Next to advance to the next step. Again, if you don't see the Next button, then click on the preview so that the Finish button becomes the Next button. Going to add a 1-point border. The gap is the amount of space left between the edge of your legend box and the text in it. There may be no need to adjust the gap here, but if we need it, we'll come back to this area and set it. Right now, the gap is set at 10. Now I'm going to click Preview to take a look at our legend. It's very difficult to see, but it's starting to look appropriate. There is no legend, and it's fairly easy to read. And this is where you're going to need to decide if you want a border. If the legend is going to be up here, which I plan to place mine, I probably don't need a border. So in this case, I'm going to remove the border. Feel free to put it wherever you'd like. There's plenty of space down here. Just don't cover up the farmers markets. I'm going to undo the preview. We'll come back to this area in a second. For now, let's just click Next. This is a special area where you can change the minute spacing in all of these different areas. Notice how I click each item, the spacing bar changes. These are minute details that we won't set now, but you can go back and set when you start creating your own maps. We won't select anything here. We can click Preview, take a look at our map again, turn off Preview, and then click Finish. Our legend does not include the title legend, but if it did, we could right-click, go to Properties, click on the legend, and then unclick Legend tab, and then unclick the Show button. And then anything in here would not show. I'm going to click Apply and show you that. Notice nothing shows up now. It's now your choice of where you would like to put things. If you put your legend down here, you should right-click, go to Properties, and then in the frame add a background of some color, perhaps gray. Click apply, and then you can see your legend much better. I encourage you to experiment and place it wherever you'd like. You'll learn more by doing it on your own. For now, I'm just going to keep mine very simple in the hopes that all of you come up with your own layout. Just move this a little bit. There we go. There's some more modifications we're going to make to our map, though. I do have it pretty well lined up the way I'm going to keep it. In this case, I'm going to go back to my legend, click on it, right click, properties. From here, I'm going to go to items and go to parks. I'm going to click on style. From style, I'm going to choose properties so that I can change the default patch. Instead of a basic square or rectangle, I'm going to override in the General tab, override the default patch by clicking in that box and choosing Park or Preserve, which will give the map a little bit of flair, so to speak. Click OK, OK, apply, and now my park symbol is a little bit more interesting than just a basic swatch. Click OK again, and I've cleaned up my park symbol. We still have a slight issue with this locator map. I'm going to activate it and then work with the scale up here. I'm going to try several things. First, 1 to 10 million. And when I do that, it's still a little too big. So if I try 1 to 3 million, it's definitely way too big. 1 to 10 million. The best course of action is to go back to the data view and then move it around a little bit. In this case, I'm going to narrow it down to 1 to 3 million with my mouse, and then click back over to the layout view, and it seems to look pretty good right there. Although, look what happens. It changes to 1 to 13,687,500. It looks like it could get a little bit bigger, in which case, let's bring it down to 1 to 13 million. We'll go, and we've done this before, customize this list, 13, click add, click on it, say OK, and then choose the 13 million. It looks a little bit better. Maybe 12 million will work. Customize, 12 million. Add, click on it, OK, and try 12 million. That looks pretty darn good. Yours may be different though. What I suggest you do is click off of the arrow and move to the pan. Pan the map a little bit to make sure that you have the whole map, because this doesn't tell us anything and this doesn't really tell us anything. This is probably a good place to have it. Once I get that in the right spot, to prevent me from messing it up or moving it, you can go to Properties and then Fixed Extent, and it locks it in to that extent. I say Apply, OK, and now I can't even get to the pan button. I can't move it, which is exactly what I want to do. If I were to activate the primary map, the pan button is still available, but the scale buttons are not. It's still the right scale, but I can still move the map. If you'd like to refocus your map a little bit, then you may do so. And that just about covers setting up your layout. I think that's all that's left to do is to save it, and you'll be on your way. Feel free to play with the settings, modify things, change your layout. This is not the required layout. It would be great to see other different layouts to see how people design their map. You do get points for creativity based on how great your map looks.